Hello, everyone. Bună dimineața tuturor și bine ați venit. Dear guests, it's a great honor to welcome you to this workshop dedicated to boosting technology transfer in the Republic of Moldova, with the participation of national and international experts. We all know that technology transfer is a crucial element for the economic and social progress of any nation, and ANCD will make every effort to support this field by financing research and innovation projects, by organizing networking events, and of course, by promoting the culture of innovation in the country. On behalf of ANCD, I would like to express our gratitude to the Ministry of Education and Research of Republic of Moldova for piloting and supporting this initiative. And I give the floor to Ms. Adriana Cazacu, Secretary of State of the Ministry of Education of Moldova.
Bună dimineața tuturor!
I'll take the role of translating. Good morning, everybody.
Stimați oaspeți,
Dear
stimați
guests,
colegi,
dear
onorată
colleagues,
asistență,
dear assistants,
mă simt onorată să reprezint în cadrul evenimentului de astăzi Ministerul Educației și Cercetării.
I feel a pleasure to represent today to this event the Ministry of Research,
Să salut prezența dumneavoastră în cadrul acestui eveniment.
to welcome you at this event.
Este foarte important că astăzi, la această masă rotundă, sunt împreună cercetătorii și reprezentanții mediului de afaceri.
It is very important that today we covered researchers and companies as well.
Pentru noi, cei care suntem responsabili de elaborarea documentelor de politici în domeniul cercetării, este foarte important acest fapt.
For us, who develop the policy making in Moldova, is very important this fact.
Recent, Ministerul Educației și Cercetării a elaborat noul Program Național pentru Cercetare și Inovare pentru 2024-2027.
Recently, the ministry drafted the new program for research 2025-2027.
Și unul dintre obiectivele principale ale acestui program este stimularea inovării și transferului tehnologic.
And one of the objectives of this paper is the stimulation of innovation and technology transfer.
Prin urmare, și resurse financiare sunt prevăzute pentru proiectele din domeniul cercetării, inovării și transferului tehnologic.
In such a way, also financial resources were allocated for this cause.
Sperăm ca să avem pe viitor și în urma unor asemenea evenimente să avem mai multe aplicații la proiectele date.
In these terms, we hope that we'll have even more project proposals applied to the grant that we are offering.
Mesajul primordial pe care vrem să-l transmitem și cu această ocazie este că așteptările societății sunt foarte mari în raport cu rezultatele cercetărilor noastre.
The main message is that the expectancy of the society are higher than the innovation level of our country. Is it that?
Noi toți cei prezenți suntem conștienți de faptul că colaborarea dintre mediul de cercetare și mediul de afaceri are un impact major în dezvoltarea economică a țării.
We are aware of the fact that the collaboration between researchers and companies have a major impact on the development of the country.
În acest context sunt importante pentru noi și colaborările cu rețelele internaționale de transfer tehnologic.
In this context, it is essential for us to collaborate with international networks.
Pe final, urez succes tuturor participanților în cadrul atelierului de astăzi.
As final remarks, I wish you success for today's event.
Și sperăm să se materializeze lucrările atelierului de astăzi, să se materializeze în noi colaborări și rezultate cât mai palpabile pentru domeniile noastre.
And I wish that that today's workshop will simulate new collaboration and future endeavors.
Vă mulțumesc și vă urez succes tuturor.
Thank you and wish you luck, everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Kazaku, for your presence at this event and for your continuous support offered to us by the Ministry of Education and Research. Today, we have the privilege of having among us 8 renowned German experts whose presence is a testimony of Germany's interest in supporting Moldova in its modernization and European integration efforts. This event was possible mainly due to the openness to collaboration of the Ministry of Education and Research of the Federal Republic of Germany. And I give the floor to Mr. Florian Frank, Head of Division 212, Cooperation with the Eastern European countries, South Caucasus, Central Asia. Welcome, Mr. Frank.
It's working. Okay, it's working. Thank you very much for your kind words. Thank you very much for the introduction. Dear Secretary of State, Mrs. Kazaku, dear Professor Hagano, we already had a meeting yesterday that was really successful. It was we got some insights in your system and in your interest to collaborate with us. And we hope that we can really start this work together with you. Well, dear representatives of Moldavian ministries and agencies, dear rectors and university representatives, dear company representatives and innovators, it's good to see you all here. Well, the room's so packed, so full. Well, we checked just today in the morning how many people have applied for this workshop, and I think we are now 65 of us. And this shows the huge interest in collaboration, well, in learning about how to transfer results from science into the society, into enterprises, into companies, into the economy. Well, your findings, your ideas, your innovations will really make a change. And this is the reason why we are standing here. And we also hope, well, we have some experts here, well, we have our experts here, 8 experts, but we also want to learn from you. Because I think, well, this issue of how to transfer findings of science and society into society to make a real change is always it's a business that will never end. So I think it will be really interesting to discuss with you, and I hope we will have the time to do so after the presentation. So I'm pleased to be here with you today. Well, I already said it while on this workshop. We started this collaboration. We decided to have this workshop last year when we signed the joint declaration of intent on cooperation in science, research and innovation. And this is just a restart of a cooperation we had before, and we really want to deepen our collaboration with you because the world has changed, and not for the better, we have to say. We also had to adapt to these new times. We call it Zeitenwende in Germany. It's turn of the times. This makes us more open and I hope also more successful in the collaboration with the Eastern European countries, especially also with you, because well, times are so tough that we need to collaborate stronger together. We need to join forces. We need to fight for democracy in Europe. And this is the reason why we're standing here and we're standing beside you, and we want to collaborate with you. We have started 3 unilateral measures that are targeting also the other Eastern European countries, the so-called Eastern Partnership countries. And I will just mention the 3 of them. We have promotion of measures to establish sustainable bilateral joint partner structures. This has just been published, and we got 127 applications. We have to now to sort out which one of these 127 will be funded to join forces in the European research area. We have secondly measures to prepare joint applications for German research institutions, including Moldavia from the Eastern Partnership countries, to join the framework of the European Horizon Europe program, because this is especially important for you as a country that wants to join the European Union to get an open door to join one of the biggest political scientific endeavors, well, the so-called European Horizon Europe program with billions of euros available for science, for the funding of science, for joint projects. And last but not least, we support the support initiative Gender Equality Plan to strengthen scientific cooperation between Germany and the Eastern Partnership countries. But I also have to say, when I just see, well, what we experienced yesterday when we met the first time, I think, well, maybe the gender balance is more a German problem than a problem of Moldavia, because we are nearly completely male. Well, just two colleagues, women colleagues are joining us, the others are men, so I think you're maybe more advanced than we in this respect. So we also can learn from you. For these unilateral funding announcements, we have received indeed some submissions that envisage collaboration with Moldovan partners. And we will see by the end of this year who will be the partners. Although these calls are in high demand and therefore strongly competitive, there's a chance, and we hope you will get the chance, that they will also contribute to the revitalization of our bilateral cooperation. Also this year, we published in January the joint mobility funding announcement together with NAD, and we will see what will be the outcome. And we also discussed yesterday that we are coming back to your country and soon, because we want to learn about your strategies and what is the outcome of your discussions and your deliberations, because this is just the start. Well, it's just the start. We did last September with my predecessor, Mrs. Hermani. Maybe some of you got to know her. We are still strong collaborating. We're still in exchange, and I think this is a good way to have some continuity in this collaboration with your country. So I won't take you much more of your precious time, because, well, you're not here to listen to me, but you're here to listen to our experts. I wish you a very successful day today, and I hope it will be an exchange, because once again, we are also here to learn from you, because this task to get ideas and initiatives, brilliant ideas, initiatives from academia to the real world is never ending. And with this last word, the floor is yours once again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frank. Thank you very much, Mr. Frank, for your support and for your openness to share the expertise of Germany for us, for our benefit. So now I would like to present the German experts. So please welcome Oliver Pieper from BMBF, Deputy Head of Division 212. We have here, yes. We have Colonel Sleiman Browns, Program Manager Transfer at the Stiftsverband, currently BMBF, Division 400. Then we have Niels Schroeder, BMBF Division 416. Eva Knirs, TUM International GmbH is the subsidiary of the Technical University of Munich. Please welcome. Axel Koch, Head of Transfer Department at the University of Kiel and Chairman of the Board Transfer Alliance. So attention, German Association for Knowledge and Technology Transfer. And of course, we have Christian Hochmann, Chair of Entrepreneurship, Innovation and Transformation in UNESCO Chair of Entrepreneurship and Intercultural Management at the University of Wuppertal. So welcome, and we are grateful for your time and for your benevolence to be here and to guide us through this process. So now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Vitalie Moraru, the President of the Moldovan Technology Transfer Network, to give us a presentation on the state of play and challenges of technology transfer in the Republic of Moldova. We will also have a presentation in front at the monitor. Please.
Thank you, Natalia. Yes, indeed, I'm Vitalie Moraru. I'm the head of the National Horizon Europe Office, Moldova, and the president of Moldovan Technology Transfer Network. And I want to say that in what concerns technology transfer, the meaning of this word is not foreign to me. Let's speak in this presentation about the current situation, what Republic of Moldova is facing right now, and which are the challenges which we have now. So technology transfer, if we can speak about it, it's not only about gadgets or technology, is about transforming the idea into products. And in this presentation, I will provide an overview of the status of the technology transfer and the importance of the technology transfer for the Republic of Moldova. So, what is the technology transfer? Somebody of you do know what does technology transfer means? Can you raise the hands or something like that? Do you know? Beside the experts. Okay, it's good. There are a lot of definitions of technology transfer, by the way, but I like mostly this one. The process of transferring skills, knowledge, technologies, method of manufacturing, sample of manufacturing and facilities among governments, universities and other institutions to ensure that scientific and technological developments are accessible to a wider range of users. So there are a lot of types of technology transfer, like licensing, like research collaboration. Okay, which is selling the rights to use the technology, research and the collaborations, academia and industry working together, and creating the spin-offs, which are the new companies created from universities and research. Okay. See. So we have not so many actors. We have government on the outside, we have universities and research organizations, we have industry, and we have business support organizations, which I see that a lot of business support organizations are here, which are the main actors, which could be the main actors in the technology transfer. So we speak about technology transfer, we cannot speak without speaking about the National Agency for Research and Development, which is doing funding competitions. So NARD organizes competitions for innovation and technology transfer projects. It's offering substantial financial support. These projects are selected through a detailed evaluation process, ensuring that the support goes to those initiatives with the potentials and high impact on technology transfer and innovation sector. So these projects which are implemented are very well monitored. So not only funds, but also monitors the implementation of these projects, providing oversight and ensure successful outcomes. So NARD also support the public and private sector partnerships. This agency facilitates the partnerships between various organizations in science, technology, and development, promoting collaborative efforts that can lead to technological advancements. This agency also is doing educational and promotional activities. So NARD organizes various activities such as workshops, seminars, training to promote achievements of the research, innovation, and development, and further encouraging the sharing of the knowledge and collaborative efforts in the technology community. The other actor is the Ministry of Education and Research, which I'm glad to see here, because this ministry is the main responsible of the policies. So the responsibilities linked with technology transfer is the development of the national policies and strategies for research, innovation, and development, and integration of the technology advancements with the educational and research activities. So this ministry is very important because it is the main actor which initiate the collaboration and the participation in national and international programs which promotes the technology transfer and support digital transformation, innovation-driven economy development, and has a direct impact on technology transfer because it facilitates the partnership between academia and industry and international entities, and promote Moldovan research globally through different platforms, of course. The other ministry is the Ministry of Economic Development and Digitalization. The key responsibility of this ministry is formulating and implementing policy that promote technology transfer, facilitate the integration of digital technologies in various economic sector, and also support innovation. programs and initiatives to encourage research and development in technology sectors. And also, it is responsible for creating the infrastructure development and the regulatory framework. The major universities, I put here only those universities which I considered the main actors, because they're the biggest one. And this is the state universities, the largest universities in Moldova, which is involved in numerous research projects, different research projects, and has partnership with various international institutions. Technical University of Moldova, which specializes in engineering, in technology playing. And this university also play a significant role in technology development and transfer. And the Academy of Economic Studies of Moldova, which also plays an important role in technology transfer and innovation within the country. It provides a platform of discussion on economic issues that contribute to the development of a competitive, knowledge-based society. So let's speak about challenges, because we have a lot of them. I put here some general challenges, like limited funding for research and commercializations. Let's face it, we do not have enough money to invest in research and commercialization if we make a comparison with other European countries. We have infrastructure gaps. We have lack of modern labs and equipment. We have some regulatory hurdles, which is complex, outdated regulations slowing down the process, and some strategies that are not very well coordinated, and the lack of the clear direction regarding the stakeholders' roles and supporting business and innovation. The country prioritize the research and development less compared to other countries, like Romania, for example. Universities are more focused on teaching than focused on research, which limits the technology transfer and business sector. So the brain drain is very awful problem for our society, because many skilled people are leaving Moldova for better opportunities, which hinders innovation. So weak intellectual property, IP protection discourages investment in innovation in some sectors. If we are focusing on the actors and the challenges they face, we can see that in the government sector, there is an insufficient coordination of innovation policies. There is a lack of complete and interconnected knowledge to market value chain. So a weak exploitation of patents and IP protections issues. Universities and research organizations, the weak link between research activities and business needs. Outdated research facilitates the lack of international connectivities. So we have insufficient technology transfer infrastructure and education. If we're speaking about industry, we have to say that there is a low receptivity to innovation. So there is a lack of R&D capacities with local companies. There is a poor establishment conditions for startups due to bureaucracy and weak business culture and funding support. The financing of innovation at all stages, there is a deficit of technological intermediaries to connect business demands with innovation sources. So strategies to overcome the technology transfer, because we have to think about the strategies which might overcome this. These are not problems, these are challenges. So the government initiatives to improve the coordination and integration of innovation policies by developing a clear IP protection strategy and support patent exploitation. We have to strengthen the research in academia to enhance this linkage by aligning research with market needs, to modernize facility and to promote international research collaboration. We have to do the part with the industry engagement to foster a strong R&D culture with local companies and to reduce bureaucratic hurdles to encourage startup formation. And of course, to enhance funding support, to increase funding for all stages of innovation, to establish technological intermediates and to bridge business demands and innovation sources. So the positive developments. The positive developments, we have the strategy of smart specializations, which has to be, will be approved sooner or later. So this strategy is used to focus the research efforts on Moldova's strengths and business needs. So the national programs for research and innovation is also on the table, so it also will be approved, which is addressing the technology transfer improvements. And of course, our partners from different financing organizations like UNICEF supporting Moldova in creating a roadmap to improve its innovation technology transfer system. So the law on scientific and technological parks must be revised. The objective of the revised law is to stimulate this demand and boost the project pipeline within scientific and technological park and innovation incubators. The key performance indicators, the number of actions taken to attract new companies and to increase this number of the residents, companies, and their involvement in the R&D activities. And loss of fiscal incentives in 2019 led to decreased activities. So the proposed amendments to this law include reintroducing incentives and enhancing knowledge-based services. Establishment of the National Technology Transfer Office within National Agency for Research and Development. I won't speak about it because I think the General Director of National Agency will speak about this office a bit. But this office is centralizing the enhance of the technology transfer process from public research and organization to the private sector. And it has a clear key objectives which will facilitate the commercialization of the research and manage the intellectual property and licensing agreements. I hope that this office also will overcome the lack of the coordination and support for technology transfer activities and will establish a sustainable funding model. I think if I speak too much, you just stop me, because this I can speak about technology transfer more than 20 minutes, I guess. So the regional innovation strategies in Moldova, those strategies must focus on regional development, but also must customize the innovation infrastructure to regional strengths and needs and enhance local economic growth and competitiveness. These strategies must develop and support sector-specific infrastructure, encourage local universities and enterprises to collaborate on innovation projects. I've heard that the National Agency for Research and Development, together with the Ministry of Education, wanted to develop these regional centers for innovation and technology transfer. I do not know which is the state of the art of this initiative, but I think that it's a very good one. Diaspora engagement in Moldova's innovation policy. If we speak about diaspora, so it has a clear objective to leverage the Moldovan diaspora expertise and network to drive innovation-driven sustainable development and to integrate diaspora engagement across relevant policies area through national development strategies and facilitating diaspora participation in innovation policy cycle at various stages, including local levels. So, about the development of technology transfer strategy in the Republic of Moldova. I am the person which support this development of this strategy, because it will establish a cohesive and efficient technology transfer system and will enhance the innovation ecosystem in Moldova, will strengthen legal framework to support technology transfer, will develop the infrastructure and human resource capacities, and will foster partnerships between academia, industry, and government. And of course, it will have a clear action plan, which will revise existing laws and will encourage innovation. The case study, I couldn't go without speaking about a successful technology and innovation project, which was financed by the National Agency for Research and Development. You can see here that this innovation, by the way, doesn't have a match to see, not even European, not even globally. So it's an innovation, it's a Moldovan innovation. So autonomous LED screen management for exchange rate displays for PECO stations, which is a product a project by ABC Solutions, which is leveraging innovation display for currency exchange rates and fuel prices at service stations. So it's very simple, but it's very innovative, and nobody thought about that. And it's very useful already because it's implemented into practice. So the outcomes of this project is that they realize an intelligent display solution, reducing human error and allowing remote monitoring with ongoing negotiation for system installation in Moldovan banks. International collaboration. I am glad that we have such good and professional experts from Germany here, because this is very important for our country. It's very important to establish collaborations and opportunities in working with our foreign partners, because we have a lot to learn from them. And they are here to mentor up us and to show us the way we need to do. And maybe somehow they will protect us from making the mistakes they had around 25, 30 years ago, I think, maybe more. Okay. The conclusions and the future directions. I'm already, Natalia, I'm finishing, so yeah. The conclusion and the future directions. So summarizing the key points. Moldova is enhancing its innovation ecosystem through the strategic laws, collaborations, and infrastructure development. Engaging the diaspora and regional strengths are pivotal and will strengthen the national technology transfer strategies. So the future directions, we are going to continue improve the legal framework and support structures and further integrate the international collaboration and expertise. Thank you. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moraru, for the insightful presentation. Also, a great thank you for the success story. And I assure you, it's not the only successful case. So we are on the right track. So as we all understand, Moldova is at a crucial moment in its development now, being engaged in a series of ambitious reforms aimed at integrating it into the European Union. And technology transfer plays an important role in this journey. And ANCD plans to implement a number of programs and initiatives aimed at fostering collaboration between universities, research organizations, and private companies. And in this context, I give the floor to Ms. Aurelia Hangano, the General Director of ANCD, who will present the agency's vision on this subject. Welcome.
Well, dear guests, dear colleague, I'm very glad to meet you all at this event and on this place. It is somehow symbolic for all of us being back in this room and discussing about the innovation and the technological transfer. Actually, we tried to understand at the agency what is the state of play, as Vitaly said already, and we started to understand what we may do now and for the small amount of time that we have ahead. We understand that the ministries have their very big views and big strategies. And we understand that the ANCD is a small entity that is in place to implement those strategies, or they implement the activities that are real and are needed for our institution. We proposed a plan of action that we discussed, or we proposed for discussion to the Ministry of Education and Research and also to the Ministry of Economy and Digitalization. And on this plan of action, we had a very fruitful and interesting discussion yesterday at the ANCD with our guest experts. And I may say that we are very glad to hear and to take note by your comments and your question. Those will help us to better shape this plan of action and to better put in place those actions. So to be very quick, if I may, to switch to Romanian and to make a summarize of our discussion yesterday and our plan. For better comprehension, sorry. Vitaly took my time, so I will be very quick. Stimați colegi, stimați cercetători, așa cum am zis, noi la NCD am încercat să vedem care este situația la momentul actual. Înțelegem că din momentul în care a fost creată această instituție, prin comasarea celorlalte 4 care le știți dumneavoastră înainte, dar una dintre care a fost Agenția pentru Inovare și Transfer Tehnologic din cadrul Academiei de Științe, care a fost transformată de fapt într-un singur departament la NCD. La momentul actual, în acest departament sunt 4 unități de angajare, dintre care una este ocupată. Această situație vorbește în general despre ce se întâmplă cu inovarea și transferul tehnologic, chiar în situația când anul acesta noi am avut un buget dublu pentru apelurile de concurs în cadrul acestei intenții, inovare și transfer tehnologic. Și noi am avut 3 concursuri. Am avut concursul pentru inovare, proiecte inovative în sumă aproximativă de 8 milioane, deci se presupuneau a fi finanțate practic 8 proiecte. Am avut aceeași valoare financiară pentru proiectele inovare pentru transfer tehnologic și am avut un apel foarte nou, nu foarte nou în sensul că a existat o tentativă într-un proiect anterior, dar de la bugetul de stat nu s-au acordat niciodată bani pentru proiectele vouchere inovaționale, pe care eu, de exemplu, le-am considerat cea mai facilă și cea mai ușoară cale de stabilire a contactului între mediul academic și mediul de afaceri. Pentru că voucherele inovaționale presupuneau, în primul rând, oferirea consultanței, serviciilor de consultanță de către mediul academic, către mediul de afaceri. Situația s-a creionat în felul următor. La inovare noi am avut 8 propuneri, 4 declarate eligibile. La transfer tehnologic am avut 7, 2 declarate eligibile și la voucher inovaționale avem o singură propunere. În contextul condițiilor de realizare a concursurilor pentru acest palier, noi am prelungit concursul pentru voucher inovaționale până în data de 15 mai și îndemnul meu este să participați la acest concurs și să valorificați această oportunitate, pentru că este, repet, o cale foarte ușoară de a stabili contacte și de a vă valorifica expertiza academică întâi de toate, iar pentru mediul academic de a face lucrurile corect, beneficiind de această expertiză. Deci, vă rog frumos, îndemnați și colegii, noi vom încerca să facem câteva sesiuni de informare suplimentare pe acest subiect și să avem cât mai mult. Dar zic, această situație pe care am constatat-o la momentul actual ne-a ajutat, de fapt, să înțelegem că subiectul inovării și transferului tehnologic în Republica Moldova se află cumva așa, în discuții foarte separate și sporadice, atunci când este doar pus subiectul pe agenda unei ședințe și nu se întâmplă niște activități consecvente și care să aibă un anumit scop. Deci ce ne-am propus noi la NCD? În primul rând ne-am propus să ne creștem capacitatea noastră internă, să ne educăm proprii angajați în ceea ce privește inovarea, transfer tehnologic și respectiv cei care să poată apoi transfera cunoștințele către mediul interesat de acest specific. În acest context este propus organizarea acestui oficiu național pentru inovare și transfer tehnologic la NCD. Deci în calitate de centru de consultanță, de mentorat, de formare, de informare pentru cei care sunt interesați de domeniu. În același context am discutat și cu AGP-ul ca acest centru de fapt cumva să se conecteze cu ceea ce ține de proprietate intelectuală. Ori, în viziunea mea, inovarea și transferul tehnologic nu poate să existe separat de regulile care funcționează în domeniul proprietății intelectuale. Și în felul acesta, deci noi ne propunem ca acest oficiu să fie un punct, un loc în care omul vine cu un obiect al proprietății intelectuale, înțelege ce să facă cu dânsul și înțelege unde să meargă, unde să iasă și cum să ajungă cu el în perspectivă pe o piață. Deci, într-un fel, ar fi un ghidaj sondaj, un cerc în care persoana interesată poate obține toată consultanța pe acest domeniu. Repet, ne creștem întâi capacitatea noastră. După ce vom considera că suntem în stare să oferim consultanță pentru ceilalți, vom începe deja creștere de capacitate în instituțiile unde această capacitate există, universitățile întâi de toate, dar și mediul de afaceri în același timp, în măsura în care este interesat și măsura în care este atractiv. Constatăm la universități că oficiile de inovare și transfer tehnologic pe alocuri există doar pe hârtie, nu se întâmplă nimic acolo, nu există oameni care să fie dedicați acestui subiect și respectiv nu există persoane care să ajute comunitatea ca să crească această capacitate. Deci este al doilea nostru obiectiv pe care să-l dezvoltăm împreună cu rectorii, împreună cu coordonatorii de instituții. Mai departe, vorbim deja despre atragere de finanțări și despre atragere de expertize pe acest domeniu, astfel încât domeniul să fie mereu în viziunea noastră. Am zis că am să fiu repede. Noi am discutat acest document. Experții noștri ne-au făcut anumite recomandări, anumite comentarii. Noi urmează să detaliem aceste obiective pe care le-am pus acolo și îl vom transmite pentru o viziune publică, pentru un comentariu asupra lui, respectiv va fi pus și pe site-ul ANCD în calitate de document public și în calitate de asumare de responsabilități asupra domeniului. Repet, este un document pe care ANCD l-a intenționat și îl atenționează și îl vede ca o foaie de parcurs pentru instituție în sensul creșterii de capacitate în țară. Mulțumesc! Dacă sunt întrebări...
Thank you very much, Ms. Hangano, for your dedication to this topic and also your willingness to make a change, not only for the scientific community, but for the entire country. Thank you for that. So now I would like to let you know that we have the chance to delve into the German perspective of things. So we now start with the presentations of our German experts, and I give the floor to Mr. Axel Koch, University of Kiel and Chairman of the Board, Transfer Alliance. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you. I'm quite honored to be here, and what you get now is a practitioner's point of view. So I'm a practitioner in knowledge and technology transfer for now 22 years. And for the last 2 years, I've been president of the German Association for Knowledge and Technology Transfer. That's the National Practitioners Rooftop Organization. How do I switch to the next slide? Yep. Are you doing it or? No, it works. Thanks a lot. And I will take 1 minute to explain what our association does, because I think there might be some connection for follow-up talks afterwards. So, I mean, we bring together the community of tech transfer professionals in Germany, and we have more than 100 institutional members. That means universities, research institutions. In Germany, we have those 2 types of universities, the bigger ones and the applied universities for applied sciences. And on the one hand, we do knowledge exchange, experience exchange, and capacity building. So we have different working groups. We offer training courses, which are, most of them are in English as well, so could be transferred to Moldavia as well. And on the other hand, we do, let's say, position papers, white papers, lobbyism for the profession of knowledge and technology transfer, to make our world better. And coming from this standpoint, I'll give you a bit of different perspective, but with a lot of overlap with what Mr. Moraro said just 10 minutes ago, because I think the challenges are the same in Germany and here. So I choose a slightly different definition of technology transfer. For me, it's to overcome the valley of death. And just in one sentence, because if you look at that graphs, we have on the one side the publicly financed part, that's science. I just heard that it is not very well financed here. But I mean, that's the same in Germany, but the tech transfer part, that's in most of the countries of the world, not financed at all, or only not very well financed. On the other hand, you have the industry part, which is mainly privately funded, where you have VC coming in, you have the private companies spending money, and then you have that gap in between, where you have developments coming from university, which are really interesting, innovative, but not in the stage of being transferred to a real product. And for that period, you need special procedures, mechanisms, you need people who have special knowledge, and that's what we're talking about. And I've chosen 5 topics I would like to talk about in the next 10 minutes. And that are the framework conditions. On one hand, it's IP protection. It's the necessity to have qualified human resources and an appropriate funding. You need standardized and agile processes, and you need a transfer culture. The last one is the most complex one because it takes ages to develop that, but you have to start somewhere. And to start with the framework conditions, I think what is happening right now here is what happened in Germany about 20 years ago. So you start activities in knowledge and technology transfer, and you give that role to people who are doing something else at universities, who are responsible for research management. And now those people are responsible additionally for knowledge and technology transfer. And that's different, but it's the same that we did before. But I would say the qualifications needed are different, because it's not only administrative qualifications that are needed, but it's on the other hand that market commercial perspective that is needed. And that's why you need industry people at research institutions as well. And that is quite difficult to have, but it's something that you should think of. You need, on the other hand, very agile and flexible internal and external funding mechanisms. And on purpose, I did not write you need a high amount of funding, because it's not always the amount of funding which is decisive, but it's the way the funding can be used and how fast and agile the processes are. That means at my university, we experienced that often to build the first prototype, to do some validation studies, you don't need hundreds of thousands of euros. It's sometimes only 5,000 to 10,000 euros, but you need them in a very flexible way. So it has to be fast. Decisions have to be taken within days or weeks. And that does not really, or is not really in line with the normal funding decision processes you have, where everything takes ages. And then when you get the money, the development has already gone further and you don't need it anymore. My third point is you need relatively low administrative and legal burdens in order to transfer IP to the outside world, to startups and to industry. Low administrative burdens to found companies. In Germany, it still takes months to found a company. Yeah, you have to go to the notary and so on. You have a lot of financial regulations. We have a lot of problems with university researchers wanting to go to a startup and then having 2 jobs, but they are not allowed to because there might be conflicts of interest. We have the IP issues, and there it needs a clear policy. It needs clear legal framework conditions, and that makes tech transfer a lot easier. So coming back to what I was saying 2 minutes ago about the qualifications needed, on the one hand, it is that commercial point of view, but on the other hand, you need a good understanding of administrative public procedures in order to make it easier to transfer interesting research results to practice, because you know how to find good solutions to use university infrastructure to handle the IP and so on. Coming from the framework conditions to IP protection, I heard yesterday that most of the IP which exists here at the universities is only national IP. And I think if you want to do real global knowledge and technology transfer, you have to change the perspective there. So you need a good system to select the interesting results and then have that international IP policy where you can apply where you can hand in a PCT application, you can get protection in Europe, and maybe in the US, China, and Japan. But in order not to spend a lot of money without knowing what happens afterwards, it needs, I think, a very intelligent use of time and resources in the first year, because you have that priority year concerning IP, where you can test things on the market, where you can see if things are commercially interesting or not. And if you use that time in a good way, then it makes sense to spend money afterwards. We're not only talking about registered IP, we're talking about software as well, where you don't have to spend money to get protection. We're talking about biological material and so on. For those cases, you need confidential information. And that's a big discussion at universities. You always have that discussion, I want to publish, and on the other hand, I need to protect my IP. For the registered IP, you register before, then you publish. That only needs fast processes, then it's possible. For the other cases, it's necessary to get some kind of agreement between the tech transfer people and the scientists in order to decide to which extent things can be published and to which extent they should be confidential even later, in order to make it possible to commercialize them in a second stage. And what I heard yesterday, I'm coming to incentives again later, is that there is not a lot of possibilities or not a lot of incentive for researchers doing tech transfer. That's something you definitely need. In the field of IP protection would be an inventor's bonus. So in Germany, we have in general the right of the inventors to get a bonus if their invention is used by their company or by their employer for commercial purposes. But for research institutions, we have a special framework which says that all university inventors get 30% of the income generated by the institution with the IP. And that's quite a nice situation, actually. That means if we are making, I don't know, 100,000 euros by licensing a patent to a startup or an industry company, 30,000 euros without deducting any costs go to the researchers. And that makes it very attractive to hand in innovation, invention disclosures, and so on. And I think it doesn't have to be 30%, but there has to be something. One additional thing for industry corporation, we have a bonus as well. So researchers can get the so-called Forschungszulage. It's a bonus which is paid in addition from the industry to the research institution, which is given directly to the researcher in order to make it more attractive. Because, I mean, public funds normally are relatively easily available, at least in Germany. Private funds are not easily available, but if you want to make that acquisition of private funds more attractive, you have to offer incentives. The next thing I would like to talk about is the field of qualification and funding. Again, since knowledge and technology transfer is not a traditional task of public research institutions, and it was added at some time to the basic tasks of teaching and doing research, often you don't have a stable funding for the people working in that area, and that means you have a lot of brain drain. People coming, getting courses, then they are qualified after a couple of years, then they are going away, or you're starting from scratch. That means you need a good, continuous, and if it's possible, not only personalized, but working with digital tools as well, good qualification scheme in order to have the people needed for that phase for the Valley of Death. And those people, they have that divided hat on the one hand, the commercial perspective, on the other hand, that administrative, science-orientated perspective. And concerning people, I think we talked about it yesterday, a big discussion should be what can be done decentrally at the institutional level, and what can be done on the central level. Because it is not, in my opinion, it is not possible from the central level to support single technology development projects. That's just too much. On the central level, you create the incentive schemes, you create the right policies, you create funding opportunities. But the first steps, like identifying interesting technologies, helping with the first part of the IP protection, do patent search and so on, I think that can be done on the institutional level, and then coming to the central level. Last point concerning funding, in the end, it needs some kind of continuous and stable funding, because otherwise you have the situation that partly happens in Germany as well. We have a lot of really interesting funding initiatives from the BMBF, but which are always limited in time. And that means capacity is built up over time, then the project ends. Often we don't have a continuing funding then inside the university. So people go away, you start the next project 1 year after, you acquire new people and start from scratch. On the other hand, what you should try to avoid is that you have people which are permanently hired, being like, you know, administratively minded, sitting in the institution, doing a routine job, not having incentives at all in order to foster innovation. So you need that kind of middle way. What have I done? Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was not on purpose. I'm almost finished, but not totally. So coming back to two more slides. Standardization, I think a big and very important task to do. That means you need clear policies, clear processes, and clear responsibilities. That makes things a lot easier. If you start with a single case from scratch and you have to define the procedure, how you transfer the IP to a company, you have to create the contracts from scratch. That makes the world not only difficult, but it takes a lot of time. And if you have clear IP policies, clear processes, then everything is easier. And there are so many templates around the world concerning license agreements, giving IP to startups, confidentiality agreements, material transfer agreements, and so on. So you can just take what already exists, choose the best, and apply it here. And one very important thing from my side, it needs transparency. Especially if you're talking about startups, and we come to startups in a minute. There are conflicts of interest. You have people in different roles. You have the researcher in the role as a scientist, as an entrepreneur, you have the university administration. And if you have that conflict of interest, if you have transparency on the other hand, then it's not a big problem. Yeah, you just create procedures in order to avoid that conflict of interest, and then it's okay. But if you don't do that, then you have that, what you have at all universities, I guess, you have that single cases where somebody can do everything and other people can't do anything because they are restricted by some kind of rules. Last point, transfer culture. I think that's the biggest thing in the end. That's something we're missing in Germany. We don't have that entrepreneurial society that you have in the US, for example, and that makes it difficult. We have the traditional thinking that people study at a university, they go to a big company, earn money, have children, and their children do the same. And what we're missing is that entrepreneurial spirit to create companies, to take some risk, to handle failure, and that's a big thing to do. And it starts long before the actual knowledge and technology transfer. It already starts in school. It's part of the studies. To have small projects, incentivizing entrepreneurship, maybe starting a company during your studies and so on. And that's a very important point. It's very difficult to do it. It's very challenging, but you have to do it at the same time. It'll take years. but you'll see the fruits afterwards in 5 to 10 years maybe, and you need it. Yeah, 2 last sentences. We talked about KPIs yesterday. I think you shouldn't over evaluate or over what do you say? KPIs are not everything, but you need KPIs. You need key performance indicators. You have to measure something. You have to set goals. You have to measure that goals, and you have to see if your measures fit with the goals. And otherwise, you have to change. Yeah, that's one thing. And concerning target groups, I think you should start with people who are already keen on transferring their knowledge to industry. Those are the ones you get the easiest. Yeah. And for them, you have to make things easy and establish clear procedures. Then the second group are the ones who are, I would say, let's say, opportunistic. Yeah, opportunistic means if they are incentivized, if it's easy to get money to do that, they'll do it. And the third group are the ones who right now, they want to do basic research and they say, well, transfers, yeah, that comes automatically because I'm doing good research. Those will come in the end. When you have the other 2 groups being already active, being successful, having a company besides, earning some money, then the third group will start thinking about being active and in knowledge and technology transfer as well. And it's a long way, but I think you're in a good way. And I'm happy to help if I can help you. So thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for the insightful presentation. And do we have a question? We have room only for one question. Otherwise, we also have some time after the working groups at 4:30 p.m. And then I would invite you to write down your questions and then we could discuss them later. So if someone wants to know, if everything seems clear at this point, then I would invite Mrs. Christine Folkman, the Chair of Entrepreneurship, Innovation and Transformation, and UNESCO Chair of Entrepreneurship and Intercultural Management of the University of Wuppertal. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here and would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this inspiring place. So we learned a lot about technology transfer and issues related to that. Complementary to this is the topic entrepreneurship, to think and act entrepreneurial. So may I ask, do we have professors in the room or do we have colleagues from universities? So just a few? Okay. Okay. Oh, so more, there are more. So because my presentation relates mostly to colleagues, to entrepreneurship educators, or to people who want to be an entrepreneurship educator. So first of all, we learned yesterday or today what is innovation, what is technology transfer, but now we would think about entrepreneurship as a complementary issue. In a narrow sense, we think about entrepreneurship just about startups. I do not want to provide you with academic definitions. It's very simple. Just business startups and entrepreneurship are synonymous. But for us, it's more important to say entrepreneurship is a mindset issue. What does that mean? That means that it has not only to do with startups, it has to do with a way of entrepreneurial thinking and acting. And that can relate to corporates, that can relate to social enterprises, and even to ministries, so that people are inspired by entrepreneurship in ministries. So to think entrepreneurial is a mindset issue. I think that's first of all very important to think about that, what we are talking about. Why introduced Germany entrepreneurship education at universities about 25 years ago, at the end of the 90s. We all know about the United States, all this fundamental and interesting startups in the 90s, like Amazon, Google, Apple, eBay, you all know them. And for us, we do not have really scalable startups since the 70s, like SAP was more or less the last one. So creation of new jobs is very important, and therefore startups are so important. And that's what our politicians wanted to achieve at the end of the 90s by introduction entrepreneurship at universities. So this is a similar slide which relates to what Vitaly has presented from a different perspective might be. So universities, governmental institutions, and the economy, that means companies, that means NGOs and other institutions, have to collaborate in this context in a very, very close way. So public, private, and academic institutions work together. And for universities, it's important to come from a teaching university to research university to an entrepreneurial university. We will later hear a presentation about my colleague Knirsch, and she might tell us about the Technical University of Munich, which is a kind of benchmark in Germany in transformation of a university to becoming, and they call themselves an entrepreneurial university, so to become an entrepreneurial university. And that's especially the case for technical universities in Germany. So the ingredients, what is important to become an entrepreneurial university? So to strengthening your core body within the institutions. That's very, very important. To expand the development periphery. So that means the stakeholder involvement, we talked about that, is also very important. A diversified funding basis, state funding. In Germany, we have a very popular program. It's called Exist. It was designed by BMBF, but then it's now in the hands of BMBK, our Ministry of Economics, a federal ministry. And the other hand, we need the private capital. So business angels funding, crowdfunding, venture capital funding, and so on. And I think the most difficult challenge is stimulating the academic heartland. That means the mindset issue, to think entrepreneurial. Axel pointed that out a couple of minutes ago, that to think entrepreneurial is the most important challenge, because most of the people want to have a safe job, children, and so on. And to create a startup, that means risk taking. Yeah, as an entrepreneur, you are a risk taker in this context. So that's very important. And create an entrepreneurial culture. Why do we look all to Stanford, to the Silicon Valley as a role model? Is that a role model for Europe? So what experts, my colleagues, Daniel Eisenberg, who is a famous professor at Babson College in the United States, he does recommendations to politicians, and he says, don't copy Silicon Valley, find your own way in your ecosystem. And that's what is a very important message to you. Don't copy the Technical University of Munich. It can inspire you, but you have to find your own way. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's just an approach for a single university and a single ecosystem. And I think that's very important to point out. Okay. So as an entrepreneurship educator, I love to talk about entrepreneurship education, but we can skip it, might be. But this is here now important, I think, to understand the value chain. So the education, entrepreneurship education in a narrow sense and in a broader sense. Just to the value chain within the university, you start with entrepreneurship education, sensitizing the students in bachelor courses, in master courses. That's the first step, sensitizing. It's like a funnel way. Yeah? The funnel is sensitizing, and then find the students who have an entrepreneurial spirit. Find the students who love to be innovative, who have ideas, business ideas. And then you can take them in special groups and develop with them business models. So to create business models, and then you can test them. There are many ways to test business models to bring them to the market. You can have test periods, and in Germany you can have 1 year if you get a funding as a student just to experiment. They will give you 1,500 euros. They provide you with the state money, and you have a test period just to see, is the product valuable? Is it innovative enough to scale and as a startup, and it works on the market? That's, I think, the next step. And what is also important is that you have, I think, a unit within your university or next to your university, like at the Evenimentul, or most of German universities have now, like startup center, incubators, so that you have an infrastructure where students can be and can develop their own business models. Then you have courses in design thinking and other courses which are very valuable to help them to think in an innovative and entrepreneurial way. And the last step then is, when they are in the incubator, the spin-off activity. So they go out of the university, they go maybe in an accelerator where they can grow, the scale-up period, or they can go in other private startup centers and they get help there. So we have, for example, 3 or 4 startup centers, private startup centers around our region or in our region. And accelerators, of course, as well. So what we only do as a university, in our university, is the mindset issue, the sensitizing, to help the students to design their own business model, and then to get the pre-startup advice and to help them funding and incubating. And then we stop. And then the acceleration and then to grow the company, that's what others do then outside of the university. So that's the process. And what is important, to interact, and that's entrepreneurship education in the broader sense, with the stakeholders in the region. So with venture capital, with private capital investors, and also with schools. Schools, we have a program for schools in our region. So go into schools that can develop their own business models in a protected environment. That's for sure important. And also with companies, what we do, we invite entrepreneurs in our lectures. For example, in our business lectures, business BA lectures or master program lectures. So invite entrepreneurs, invite venture capitalists, invite business angels. So these are all ingredients which are important, that students can have role models, that they can understand entrepreneurship is not rocket science. Entrepreneurship is nothing what you can't achieve. And the best way is to do what I do now, is to invite alumni who were successful entrepreneurs, spin-outs out of the university, so that they can say, okay, he was an alumni, he has done it, so I can do it as well. So that's also very important. And from this funnel process, so sensitizing is entrepreneurship education, is what we do the whole day through, is just provide students with the necessary knowledge to do that, and to inspire them, and to translate academic research into marketable products. So That's what I told you about entrepreneurship education. And I think it's not necessary to deepen that. Enhances university revenue. That's the question of licensing. Axel talked about that. But important is strengthening industry links. So collaborate with industry partners. I do not know the enterprises or companies here in Moldavia, but that's also very important. How can you start as entrepreneurship educators to sensitize students? You can start not only with curricular programs. It's always difficult to include entrepreneurship into a curricula from scratch on, because curriculums are fixed. Yeah. So, but what you can do is start with extracurricular activities. Invite, might be foreign lecturers to help them, for example, to offer workshops in design thinking, in IP knowledge, in entrepreneurship, whatever. Yeah, you could start. What we have is a student initiative called Enactus. Enactus is for students. They are working on business models. It's coming from the United States. It's a competition, and there's a national competition between universities. Students bringing very interesting business models to in a competition. For example, the €1 classes from the Technical University, they were the winner in the World Cup a couple of years ago, with a social impact. The importance is also focused on a social impact. So the coordination costs grow in the case you include that in your curricula, because you need professors. Yeah. So we are 3 professors for entrepreneurship, 2 professors for innovation, and 1 professor for technology management. And then we have also administrative stuff for that. So I know that I started 25 years ago. I was one of the first professors in Germany for entrepreneurship. I know how difficult it is to implement entrepreneurship at the university, and I know how you can feel now, because how can I do that? Because we have not enough resources to do that. And also what I did in Romania, they had the same experience. So I started with them 20 years ago in Bucharest at the Bucharest University of Economics, and they are now in a very good way, but it took also 20 years. So don't worry, it's a longitudinal process. So. We have a top-down or bottom-up approach. Both is possible. In Germany, it was more or less a top-down process to initiate entrepreneurship, because they provided us with incentives like the EXIST program. They provided the universities with money. And I think that could be an incentive, so that your government says, okay, it is so important for us, we establish a program like EXIST. Yeah, that would be possible, and give incentives to the universities just to do that. So there are pros and cons about it. It's in Germany, it works very well, because there are some universities which are convinced about entrepreneurship, but there are others are opportunistic, but almost every university is on its way to have entrepreneurship professors and innovation professors, chairs for entrepreneurship and innovation. It's a more artificial inception, complicates sustainability and cultural transformation. That's a really important issue as well. How can we sustain it? How can we sustain this? And as a professors, you are a state employee in Germany, so then it's safe. But all the other initiatives, like the startup centers and so on, that's a question of sustaining the businesses. The other way is, and that's the Anglo-Saxon way to implement entrepreneurship education at universities, because the entrepreneurial spirit in the United States, for example, is quite different to Europe. We are in Europe more risk averse than the culture is in the United States. And therefore,
it's important to have this individual engagement. Yeah, entrepreneurs, you all know. If you think about entrepreneurs, do you know an European entrepreneur who is famous? We all think about Steve Jobs. We all think about Elon Musk. We all think about these great guys. Yeah? But look at Europe. We have also great guys, but you do not know them. Yeah, and we have great companies. We have hidden champions in Germany, for example. We have wonderful, but we all know always this, and that's important. More to talk about. Use the media. Use social media. Yeah, I think here the young people, they do always use social media. I asked my bachelor students at the beginning of the semester, how long do you work with social media? And they said, what do you guess? How many hours? 5 to 7 hours a day. So how important then are lectures? Huh? Can you imagine? Okay, so you can have selected measurements, how to measure your implementation efforts. For example, regarding extracurricular activities, you can use entrepreneurship student clubs, mentoring for student finalists, startup competition and awards. That's also very important that you have regional startup competitions. Yeah, from the United States, there's some talks about, they call it fuck up night. So where not successful entrepreneurs present their startup and the failure of their startup. Yeah, so that might be also interesting, but you can learn from failure. I mean, that's always inspiring. Mixed activities, adaptation of new teaching methods, design thinking, for example, I mentioned that, entrepreneurship center, implementation into the university strategy, and curricula offers, yeah, to have an entrepreneurship chair, to have entrepreneurship lectures, and entrepreneurship degrees, for example. We have master program in entrepreneurship and innovation, for example. That's very important to establish such programs at the university to help the students to get this right mindset. So what we did is a couple of years ago for the European Union, a study of 20 European universities, Eastern and Western universities, about entrepreneurship education, the institutional aspects, and also the context expert. But I don't want to deepen that. But that's you can read the book. The case studies are very nice. But to see what, for example, the challenge is for Eastern European university is a very nice example. My colleague Slavica Singer is doing there a great job for 20 years now. Is the University of Osijek, developing entrepreneurship from scratch over time. And her challenges might be the same as your challenges: low purchasing power, high unemployment rate, remote location, negative connotation of entrepreneurship, and the post-socialist mindset. And what she did, and I think that was very smart, she involved international experts. So I met her 2005, the first time at the Harvard University. That was subsidized from a European entrepreneur to send Eastern European people to Harvard just to get this entrepreneurial mindset. And she did that, and she involved international experts and as board members to the university. And she has also established European PhD programs for young entrepreneurs or young PhD students to collaborate. So with the University of Klagenfurt and the University of Maribor, she collaborates in an intensive way. So, and I think that is very smart. And the university is now a kind of role model in Croatia. So that might be a good idea for you as well. You can learn from them. Another example is, you can see that, is the University of Cambridge. There is one, was one, that's my last case study and almost last slide. The Hermann Hauser, he's not British, he sounds not British, he's Austrian, or he's still Austrian, and he went in the 70s to Cambridge just to learn physics. He did his PhD in physics. And what he did is he founded one of the first computers, and this company, Acorn, was sold later to Olivetti. Olivetti was an Italian computer company. You might know them, but the older ones know the company, the younger not. And then he sold this, yes, and he earned the money and founded with others a new company. It's called ARM. ARM is very famous for, worldwide famous for microprocessors. If you have a smartphone, Apple or whatever, Samsung, microprocessors are all in this smartphones. And that's the development of ARM. And ARM is now in the hand of SoftBank. SoftBank brought it to the stock market. And I think he founded it for 7,000 euros or pounds, and he sold it for millions. And what he did then, he founded Amadeus Capital, a venture capital company. And this venture capital company now is invested in hundreds of other companies all over Great Britain, mostly around Cambridge. What is the message about that? The message is find the right people who have an entrepreneurial mindset, who are able to transform a region, an ecosystem, and university, because he gave a lot of money, millions of pounds back to the university, and there are nice buildings about it. We had a collaboration with the university in one European Horizon project, and that was my colleague, he's now retired, Shaivi Akarnam, and his PhD student, Yupa Mint, who made research about the development of the Cambridge ecosystem. And I think that might inspire you. What are the ingredients? And one important ingredient is find the right people, hire the right people, and it's important. It's all about leadership. And this is my last slide, the blueprint for a successful startup journey. Yeah, that we use the sensitization, increasing visibility in the university and outside of the university, the incubation, the business model development, and the acceleration. So that is and the networking. These are the most important ingredients. So that was my last slide. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Folkman, for the so insightful and inspirational presentation on entrepreneurship education and stakeholder involvement strategies. So I would like now to invite Mr. Niels Schroeder, and then I also want to announce that after the third presentation, we will have a short break of 5 to 10 minutes, okay, for a glass of water, for a coffee, whatever. And right now we give the floor to Mr. Niels Schroeder from the Federal Ministry of Research and Development, Division 416, Universities of Applied Sciences.
Good morning to all of you. I'd like to start by also thanking you for the very kind invitation and the warm welcome that we all have received, also the fruitful discussions yesterday already, and your interest in the topic as displayed by your attendance today. I can promise you that I will be brief, and I'll try my very best not to keep you from the coffee break any longer than absolutely necessary. So just to provide you with a short overview of my presentation, this is the outline. I will start by giving you some general information about the academic system in Germany. Again, I'll assure you I'll be very brief and try to be concise, just to provide you with the basic information as necessary to then understand the 3 examples of funding programs that I want to familiarize you with. And secondly, I'd also briefly deal with the concept of the third mission of higher education institutions. So basically transfer and innovation at our universities and universities of applied sciences, to then give you a short overview of 3 programs that we have implemented, and hopefully should be helpful for you to see how we fund transfer and innovation. So the higher education institutions in Germany, as we've learned in the previous presentations, there are two different kinds of universities in Germany. So universities, some of which have a very old tradition, and then there's universities of applied sciences, most of which have only been founded recently. The first universities of applied sciences have been founded in the 1960s, and others even more recent. So the basic idea of those universities of applied sciences was that they should focus on application-oriented research. At the outset, the main goal was that those specialized universities should provide practical training in order to provide experts that could access the labor market as quickly as possible. So initially, those universities of applied sciences focused specifically on disciplines that were particularly application-oriented, such as engineering or social work. But nowadays, we see an evolvement, and those universities of applied sciences are changing. Some of them are being awarded the right to grant doctoral degrees, for example, when they are specifically strong in their research field. So why am I telling you this? This is not a theoretical lecture on the academic system in Germany, but an important point to make is that funding programs need to be tailor-made. And as Professor Volkmann has said, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to this. So when we try to come up with new funding programs, the first step for us is to take into account who are the potential beneficiaries of such funding? Who are the addressees? How do we address them properly? How do we design our programs so that they are actually tailor-made, that they meet the requirements of the addressees of such programs? So these are some numbers about the universities of applied sciences. I'll not spell it out all for you, just to indicate the growing importance. So almost half of the students enrolling at a university in Germany are enrolling with the University of Applied Science. So transfer in the context of higher education institutions. An important point to make here is that the concept, on one hand, in the academic discussion, but also from our perspective, when we think about new instruments to develop in the context of transfer and innovation, is that the so-called third mission of universities and universities of applied science, which complements the research and teaching activities of those institutes, is a broad concept. So when we talk about transfer, we don't only mean technological transfer or technology transfer, but we also refer to knowledge transfer and also the aspect of social innovation. So that is cooperation between the universities and actors in the social sector would also be something that we would summarize as consider something that can be linked to the transfer activity. So it's a really broad concept relating to the interrelations between the universities and the extra academic sector that can be very multifaceted. So this is the first funding program that I wanted to introduce you to. It's called Innovative Hochschule, which loosely translates into Innovative University. And I'll just give you a very basic concept of those three funding programs. I will then skip some of the slides and we'll be later to discuss this in more detail in the afternoon session. So just 2 or 3 slides per funding initiative, just to provide you with a basic idea of what we thought of when we came up with those initiatives, and then we can discuss it in the afternoon in greater detail. So the Innovative University, if you would want to call it that, is open to universities of applied sciences, but also to smaller and medium-sized universities that aim to strengthen their strategic third mission engagement. So that's an important aspect. We really wanted to to support and strengthen the strategic engagement of universities. And also the transfer concept that we envisioned as part of this funding initiative is a broad concept. So we funded different approaches to transfer, meaning transfer of ideas, knowledge, and technology. So not only technology, but a very broad concept of transfer. So an important aspect is the strategic conceptualization of transfer. So as a funding requirement for universities applying for such funding, they would have to substantiate that they already had a coherent transfer strategy in order to apply for funding. And why did we do that? Because we wanted to make sure that the hierarchy at the universities and also the presidents of the respective universities really appreciate and fully embrace the meaning of transfer. And they only do that if it's part of the university's strategy. And why is this important? Because we wanted to have a sustainable impact. And this is also an issue that's been touched upon. All our funding is project-based funding. So it's for a limited amount of time. And once this time has come to an end, what happens afterwards? Are the people just looking for new jobs? Is it all gone then? That's not our goal. So part of our federal structure is that the core financing for the universities lie with the lender governments. And to some extent, they can step in, but of course, there are always limitations. So that's why we took this strategic approach, so that the hierarchy at the universities and universities of applied sciences really got engaged and embraced this task of considering their university as a university that is actively involved in the third mission. So the first funding round started in 2018, and each funding round is 5 years, so relatively long time, quite a substantial amount of money that was offered to the universities. We're now in the second phase that started last year, and there are currently 55 universities of applied sciences and regular universities that profit from our funding, but also their non-academic partners like small and medium-sized enterprises, but also, as I mentioned, institutions from the social sector. So more on this as promised in the afternoon session. So I'll skip some of these slides and start with the second example. And this is called Startup Lab at FH. So what's FH? It's basically the abbreviation for University of Applied Science. So this is a program that is specifically designed for universities of applied sciences. As they are particularly application oriented, they would seem like the most likely candidate to really follow transfer activities. And this funding line, Startup Lab, is part of our broader program called Research at Universities of Applied Sciences. The goal of that funding line is to establish a startup culture at the university. So the idea was really to bring the entrepreneurial mindset, as Professor Volkmann has already explained in greater detail, to the universities of applied sciences at an early stage. So the funding that is provided by the Ministry of Economic Affairs has already been mentioned. And when we started our funding line, we somehow had to find a way to harmonize those different sources of funding. Of course, we didn't want to have a duplication of funding, and therefore we had to decide and also discuss with the Ministry of Economic Affairs how to best design this funding line. And the idea was to provide this funding at an early stage, at the pre-seed phase. Basically, the idea is that students, but also teaching assistants and professors at the universities of applied science that have an early idea that could evolve into a business idea at a later stage can test it and can discuss it and can get advice on how to, what the next steps could be. So how does it work in greater detail, basically there's 3 modules that are funded as part of this funding. And the first module is the infrastructure. So basically a physical startup lab. They would have startup centers at a central place in the university. And this already had a perfect side effect because it created visibility for the funding, but also for the entrepreneurial activities of the university. So I've visited some of those startup labs, and you really just enter the main building of the university and you have this startup lab, which really is a lab. It's a physical space where you can experiment, where you can test, where you can get guidance, where you can discuss, where you can show your ideas. So this is really the place for creativity. And it was very nice and fascinating to see how those young entrepreneurs and researchers got together and discussed their very early ideas that at a later stage could develop into a great business idea. So the second module is the project management. Of course, you need someone that is in charge, that organizes events that are taking place, and is the first person of contact for the young entrepreneurs, researchers, but also like an intermediary, also to the university hierarchy. And this third module is the so-called Kickstart funding, which worked out rather well. So the idea basically is that you give a relatively small amount of money, at least in comparison to the overall funding. So it's at maximum 7,500 euros that is awarded to a Kickstart team at the university that receives the startup lab funding. And the idea was that the selection process is decentralized. So the universities themselves can choose those Kickstart teams that should receive the funding. They then send a list for us and we approve it. But basically, the idea is that the universities themselves can select the Kickstart teams. And the Kickstart teams can then use those 7,500 euros to develop the first startup idea. They can, of course, use the facilities of the startup lab, and they could also use the guidance that is provided in the lab. So these are also slides that I skip. And in the afternoon session, I'll also give you a nice success story. So then you'll learn why you're seeing a chicken here on that slide. But I'll leave that as a cliffhanger so for the afternoon session. And this is the final program, also part of a bigger general scheme, research at universities of applied sciences. It's called FH Impulse. And the idea there is a different one. We only granted funding to 10 universities of applied sciences, but for a very long stretch of time. So the initial phase was 4 years, but you can apply for an extension for another 4 years. So the overall funding would be 8 years, and quite a substantial amount of money was given to the universities and their partners in the business sector. And the funding was granted to universities of applied science that already have a very strong research focus and are very successful in this, and already have an ecosystem which they cooperated for some times, and to really have very strong centers of entrepreneurial activities throughout Germany. Yeah, so what is special about it is that you, at least from a German perspective, it's special that you only have 10 beneficiaries there, and also it is special that the funding is provided for a relatively long time. And so this is also a part of our approach to make sure that the project-based funding, which is always limited, has an impact in order to warrant that it is sustainable at the end of the day. So much for the moment. I hope I didn't keep you too long from the coffee break. Now I tried to be brief, but I'm very much looking forward to discussing this further with you in the afternoon session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schroeder. It was a very interesting and very insightful presentation. I'm sure that it will be a fruitful discussion. So, dear colleagues, dear guests, I now invite you to a brief break, and we will see you maybe in 5 to 10 minutes. So we are not very off the time limit. Okay. And you're also welcome to the registration room. We have a coffee break. You can have a coffee break there. You can have coffee, water, a bit of biscuits, just to...
Ja, ja. Aber also, ja, ja. Also, sagen wir so.
Ja, das habe ich mich nämlich auch eben gefragt. Ich bin jetzt erstmal hergegangen, deshalb schiebe ich es erstmal so ein bisschen rüber.
Ja.
Das ist immer schon ganz hilfreich.
Guck lieber auf die Blätter.
Lass mal gerade noch ein bisschen Luft rein, dass wir hier gleich alle nicht schnappen nach Luft, umfallen.
Was?
Wird schon irgendwie gehen.
Ja, ja. Bist du denn langsam wieder ein bisschen fitter oder? Ne? Okay.
Aber
Hast du Augen zu und durch.
genau, auch so durch.
Das bleibt dir nicht möglich.
Vielleicht fehlt das Adrenalin noch ein bisschen.
Ja, na klar.
Wobei,
Du musst deine Schritte von den Dioptrien mit deiner Brille zu die Welt hinaus. Ich glaube, das war ganz. Von meinem Platz konnte ich das eigentlich ganz gut lesen. So.
Ja, ich glaube, ich gucke auf meinen Ausdruck. Das macht am meisten.
Das war von so einer LAN-Party aus den 90er Jahren.
Ja, das kann jeder. Stimmt. Ich hatte irgendwie auch vor Augen, dass es eher so ein Hörsaal ist, als so ein Roundtable.
Ich glaube, der Raum ist ein bisschen klein, ne? Auch für die Leute, die da in zweiter Reihe sitzen und so, die Luftverhältnisse und so. Ein bisschen größerer Raum wäre, glaube ich, hilfreich gewesen, aber gut.
Ja, die wollten
Nachher
wahrscheinlich
ist
den Raum nehmen, weil er nett aussieht.
Wir sind ja die Kollegen, das sind ja alles die vorherigen Wissenschaftsminister oder die Vorsitzenden der Akademie
wahrscheinlich, oder? Ja.
Ja. Werden wir jetzt nachher auch in Bronze gegossen? Und,
Stimmt.
Ja.
ja,
Ja, so langsam ich glaube,
Dear guests, I'm inviting you to take a seat. And we will now continue with the presentation of Mr. Oliver Pieper from the Federal Ministry of Research and Education of the Federal Republic of Germany. And he is also Deputy Head of Division 212, Desk Officer for the Cooperation with the Republic of Moldova. Mr. Pieper, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for introducing me. Good to see everybody. Maybe it's good to wait one more minute till everybody's seated. Okay. Yes, just before the break, we heard something about some funding measures from Federal Ministry of Education and Research, where I belong to as well, for universities. And I will present you some more funding measures, not only for university, but for scientists and in general. And yeah, as I was introduced, I work at the international department in the ministry, but I was able to sneak in here as an expert today because before I was working in the international department, I was working in another department that was responsible for transfer and innovation in BMBF. And I was responsible for some of the transfer measures that we have there, and I will present them to you today. I have the remote. I test it. Ah, yeah, okay. Thank you. We also, in the very beginning today, heard already about the definition of transfer, especially transfer in R&D. And I want to add something to it. Just one thing I would like to mention on top. That is that the transfer itself is not only about moving technologies, ideas, designs, materials, and so on from one place to another, but it's more kind of a process from the idea to the market. And in most cases, this process is non-linear. So you're not starting from science that you end up in industry on a straight line, but you have a recursive, multi-dimensional process which involves of many stakeholders, like the scientists, entrepreneurs, customers, industry, and so on. So we expect that there are some unexpected loops throughout your transfer. To start with, when speaking about transfer, what are the four main ways of transfer? And when I speak, as I said, about transfer is with a particular view on science, or transfer from science and research. And what you can do when you have a promising result, you can bring it further and try to start a business with it. We heard today also talk about entrepreneurship, so it would be one of the possibilities. Then there's the possibility to develop a service, whatever. If you have a great software idea or something, you can use it for service. If you have a patent, then you can think about licensing it and also give your patent to a company, whatever, then they use it for their product and you receive money for that. Or, and this is the most common way of transfer we have in Germany, is research collaborations with industry. So, was I skipping something? Sorry. Sometimes it's going too fast. Sorry for that. And before we start about the measures and before we start about what can we do to fund or to foster science transfer, I would recommend you to ask yourself some questions. And these questions are, do I need any help? Are further measures necessary? Or is some further infrastructure needed? Just some examples we heard today, but I listed it up here. So are there transfer units in your university? So you have to make sure about your environment. What is there? What can you use? Who can help you? Do you have networks? Are there clusters? Do you have sandbox environments? Sometimes this helps. Do you know investors, accelerators, and so on? So this is one of the first things you have to, you have to get the overview. Who are who will be there to help you with your transfer idea? And also, you need to ask yourself, do I need further experience before I successfully transfer my idea to the market? So do I have the right team? I mean, mostly
coming from a scientific perspective. You're as a scientist, you have brilliant scientific ideas, but do you have also the entrepreneurial spirit? Do you know what it takes to found a company? If not, you better have someone in the team who knows about this. And yeah, it's all about contacts, cooperation. Do you have legal knowledge? Because if you want to have a patent, or if you want to check whether there are other patents that don't allow you to operate freely, that would be a problem. So you need to have knowledge about this. You need to have a knowledge about the market you address. I mean, could be a very nice product that you develop, but if there is no market, or if there are some rules on the market that work against you, you better don't do it. And also we heard about norms and standards today. And the biggest issue, of course, is the financing. So you need to know where to get the money for your transfer. So in Germany, and especially at the Federal Ministry of Education and Research, but not only this, we also have the Ministry of Economy that is dealing with transfer measures. And we have a lot of them, and we have different individual and collaborative research programs that's particular focus on transfer. We have programs with specific pathways that focus either, let's say, on founding a company as one pathway. We have program measures that focus on a specific subject, because you have some areas like life science that need some particular designed measures. And there are accompanying research provided, like coaching, mentoring, enabling, and so on. And we have also communication measures, website, publication, conferences we give money for. And there's also a support not only for technological, but also for social innovations in Germany. And the message under this is clear: not all bridges are built, and transfer needs time. And I will, in the end of my talk, I will repeat this, because this is one of the most important things I have to say. Transfer needs time and a long-lasting strategy. Moving further to one of my favorite pictures I use when speaking about transfer is this diagram where you have the economic or societal potential of an innovation versus time. And you have these 4 pillars here, starting with a very early stage, where you have the identification of, you start from general research, you might have a good result from your research, and you might have a first idea, oh, that might be something promising. That could be something that might be potentially exploitable. So what do you do next? You need to validate your idea. You need to check whether it's really that you are really able to bring it to the market. You need to understand what would be the best way to do so. You need to further R&D in order to better understand what needs to be done further. And then once you reach this slope, then you enter the development and utilization phase, and the final step is then the introduction to the market. And with these 4 columns, for each of the columns, we have certain measures at BMBF. And some of these measures I will introduce to you today. For each, for each of the pillars, there will be one measure I will show you. For the first pillar will be something like Go Bio Initial. The second pillar will be a program called VIP Plus, and so on. And finally, besides having different measures for each pillar, we also have measures for the whole ecosystem. So to create the whole transfer ecosystem. And I will give you one prominent example of this as well. We're starting now with measures itself. I start with a measure that is, I think, that exists already for at least 20 years at BMBF. It's a measure called Go Bio. Go Bio is a measure that focuses on life science research.
because life science projects face numerous challenges, including long development times, high risk of failure, regulatory hurdles, and high capital requirements. So within this GoBio Initial, GoBio has certain lines. I will focus on a line that's called GoBio Initial, and this kicks in at a very raw and early stage of your ideas for exploitation. So you don't even need a proof of principles so far. You don't even need a patent, but you have a result from research, you have an idea, and now the first thing you want to do is to check it further, to find out if it's worth to continue work on it in terms of commercialization. And the funding here includes the personal funding for staff, for say business trips, for contracts with third parties, for expenses for the registration and maintenance of property rights, materials, and so on. So it gives you the possibility to do this first checkings. And there's another line that is that would come afterwards in GoBio that would then enter a so-called feasibility phase. We're not going into detail here, but once you successfully run through the GoBio initial phase, there would be also more to add. And maybe the same as my colleague, Mr. Schröder, I provide also some product examples, but I will skip them or some of them now, and we can discuss maybe in the afternoon these examples a bit more in detail to show you more, what is the particular idea of each measure. So I come now to the next measure, and that is, if you remember my picture with the pillars, is the one where you are in the validation phase. What means validation? Validation means you have a proof of principle, you might have a patent, but now you need to know what would be the best way to exploit my results. Would it be funding of a company? Would it be licensing, and so on? So you need to validate your idea. You might set up, you need to do maybe some more research, scale it up, and get a demonstrator running, and so on. And for this work, we have a measure called VIP Plus, validation of the technological and societal innovation potential of scientific research. And this is also a program, and you will find this for all the programs I will present you, that lasts for a long time. WIP, I think, now lasts since 2010. And the idea of WIP is that it supports scientists in the testing and proving of the innovation potential of their research results and open up possible areas of application. And with this, the validation phase reduces the risk for third parties to invest in further development. So after finishing your validation phase, you are at a stage where you can attract investors to jump on your idea. And what is special about this measure is that it's open for all topics, compared to the measure I introduced before, which was only for certain topics. This is for all topics 3. And the single stage, it's up to 3 years, and you can have up to 1.5 million for your idea. You have no submission deadlines. Whenever you have the idea, you can hand it in. You can hand it in and submit your proposal. And after, let's say, not more than 6 months, you will get a result, whether you get funded or not. I have to show you this example because I really like it. It's a project that has been funded in WIP. It's called DiaWafer. It's single crystal diamond wafers as a base material for mechanics, optics, and electronics. And this is it was a team of scientists from the University of Augsburg, and their idea was to produce monocrystalline wafers from diamonds for different applications like high performance electronics, high-tech cutting materials, and so on. And they had this idea of using a technique that is well known, that is used chemical vapor deposition, but they modified the process such a way that they, for the first time worldwide, who were able to grow these big diamonds. And when I mean big diamonds, look at it, it's like 92 millimeters in diameter. And I think they were the record holders for the world's largest diamonds so far. And now, speaking about exploitation, they have they founded a company called Augsburg Diamond Technology GmbH. And yeah, this company is running successful today. And yeah, they had this validation funding. And after that, and speaking about consistency in the funding lines, they received an exist funding. We heard about exist just in the talk of Ms. Volkmann, and I will tell you also with the next slide what it's about. Exist is also one of the long-running programs. It's already running since 1998. It's basically the most successful funding measure for if you want to fund a company, if you want to prepare funding a startup. And if you need, how does it work? It works such a way, you have different funding lines. I will keep with the easiest one that is called the Exist Gründer Transfer. And it's applicable for university graduates, for scientists, as well as students. And it also works in such a way that the university where the scientist works offers the lab offers an office for you, so that you can use your idea and develop it further, develop a first business plan for your idea, set up your team for funding your company. And setting up a team means it's also compulsory, not that you only have the scientists, but you also need to have the entrepreneurial expertise in the team. I had the honor to be part of the evaluators of Exist in former times. And yes, you can see so many success stories of this program. Like example, this one, a company that is now one of the world's leading companies in producing drones on the market. And there are several good examples from this measure. They even have some unicorns now. Unicorns meaning companies that have a value higher than 1 billion euro, starting with an Exist fund. So another successful measure. However, I will not finish my talk before introducing to you, or I need to introduce to you the most common instrument for transfer funding in Germany. Even so, it might sound a bit boring for you, but it is the most successful and the most used measure in general. It's a joint funding project. Joint funding project is the funding of collaborative R&D projects between science and industry, or even with industry alone. And we have plenty of these programs in BMBF or in Germany. Some have a special focus on small and medium-sized companies. Some have a special focus on certain topics. Some are open topic, and some are, also the range of funding ranges from some 10K to some millions, depending on the topic, on the size, and so on. And I just gave you here two examples of very successful funding measures here. One is KMU Innovativ. That is also a measure at my ministry. And then that is the biggest funding measure for joint funding projects for small and medium-sized companies is the so-called SIM program of the Ministry of Economy. And I think this program is so huge. They have like $500 million per year for funding collaborative projects between science and industry. I will skip this. And the last measure I would like to introduce today, and I was speaking about ecosystems earlier. So I just was telling you before, the pillars and some measures address a certain pillar, but we also have measures that address the ecosystem in general. And I had the honor to be responsible for a measure called the Future Cluster Initiative, or Clusters for Future, we call it. And so what was the idea behind it? The goal was to build the next generation of future innovation networks. What are future innovation networks? So what are clusters? And clusters are innovation networks that bring together a critical mass of innovation driving players within a region in a certain field of research and innovation, and are based on a common cluster strategy. So there's not a definition about a region, but we always say something like you need to get within 1 hour or 1.5 hours by car to your collaborators to talk to them. That is a kind of a idea of that. So, and in this measure, we fund R&D projects. You get funding for the cluster management because someone has to, get the overall funding, the overall management done. We also include foresight projects. We include feasibility and market studies, innovation, promotion initiatives like hackathons and so on. It's just an example. We didn't write this in the call description. We tried to be as open as possible, and we're looking for the most innovative ideas here, and also for the overhead transfer. And the particular special thing when you fund clusters is the long-term funding. So you want to build something up for a long time that after funding finishes can continue without the funding at some point. And this measure takes like 9 years, 3 times 3 years, 3 phases. And with each phase, you have increasing application proximity. This is a prerequisite. So yeah, as I said, long-term structures that are self-sustaining after the end of the funding. And not this funding measure that is just running for like 2 years now, but before there was a funding measure, similar one called Spitzencluster-Wettbewerb, with 15 clusters funded in early times. And these clusters were funded from 2007 to 2014 or something. And it's really interesting to see that out of these 15 clusters, I think 13 are still running. And they completely influenced the region where they were established by getting more jobs, attracting other companies to go there. Because, if you have a certain area that is famous for a certain topic, you attract also others to come there. And this is, this is something that's really impressive what this measure can do. It is an expensive measure. It is up to 5 million per year in this case. That means per cluster, 45 million euros within the 9 years. But we had the experience, it's worth it. And that it is worth, I can show you with my, I think, second last slide. And as an example, you might also know, it's the example of BioNTech. You know BioNTech, the company? Everybody knows it, yes? And this is an example we always use at BMBF to show how consistent funding procedure works. So you know that BioNTech was one of the companies that developed a vaccine against COVID in a record time. Like, I think COVID broke out and 1 year later they had the vaccine. But this was not coincidence that they managed to do so. It was based on decades of research and development and a great deal of perseverance and a long-term funding strategy. So how does it start? Already in 1997, there were some basic research grants that they received from our German research foundation. And it's an institution that basically also receives money from BMBF for basic research. And then between 2007 and 2013, they received some startup for the startup phase for funding their companies. They received money from GoBio, the measure I just introduced to you. And afterwards, BioNTech was also part of a group of companies that have been involved in a cluster called CI3, Cluster of Individualized Immune Intervention. And Oslan Türeci, one of the heads of BioNTech, was also head of this cluster. And afterwards, after the vaccine then was developed, of course, there were just other other money necessary to to produce a vaccine in the end. But this is one of the success stories showing that you need a consistent funding structure, funding strategy, and with this example, I think it's shown that in some cases it can work. So to finish, what are my takeaway messages today? The first one I think is quite obvious. There is not a single approach to fund transfer. There are different ones. Depends on how you would like to transfer your ideas. It depends on what is necessary and so on. And the second one is that transfer requires perseverance. It requires trust. It requires the right people, the networks, and ideally a supportive innovation ecosystem. Then there's something I would like to give you on hand is that when you think about designing transfer measures, transfer funding programs should be easy to access. That is something we found out. They should be low threshold. And if you start with it, maybe only 1 or 2 basic programs are sufficient. As I told you, we have these programs that were running for a lot of years because they're clear, easy to use, and successful. And the effort should be kept low for all sides. Transfer, that is also something interesting, requires an understanding of both cultures, the science culture and the business culture. And somehow you need to translate or understand both cultures to successfully manage transfer. And well-considered indicators and a monitoring approach, we heard yesterday about this as well, enable an evaluation of the program objectives, and this in return enables a dynamic funding approach. So you get results from evaluation, you can improve your measures and continue them. And that is just also simple advice, support advice from experts. Experts are helpful in every phase. So find the people that are the experts, talk to them, and they will help you. And with this, I would like to finish. Thank you a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. People, for a very comprehensive overview of the funding instruments, for funding approaches. So we hope to learn a lot from you in the following years. And now I would like to invite Mr. Connors Lehman-Browns with a presentation on how to strategically develop and strengthen transfer a scientific performance dimension. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks very much. First and foremost, thank you very much for the warm welcome yesterday. Thank you for the fruitful discussion. Thank you also for the opportunity today for presenting to you some insights on how to strategically strengthen transfer as a strategic performance dimension of universities and research institutions. And well, upfront, in addition to the previous presentations, I would like to focus more on the institutional level. I would like to present to you some typical challenges, some lessons learned that we gained actually from the German context. Let me see if this works. To press down. Yeah. Before I start, let's just have a short and brief introduction of myself. I'm currently working as a scientific advisor at BMBF for policy issues and digitalization and transfer in the department number 4. My main task at BMBF is currently to develop a funding project in order to strengthen transfer activities at universities and research institutions in Germany, and also to support and foster young entrepreneurs and the creation and generation of startups. Prior to working at BMBF, I was working at Stifterverband. Stifterverband is a think tank, a joint initiative of German foundations and businesses aiming to promote development in the fields of education, innovation, and research. And my main responsibility at Stifterverband basically was to consult and to accompany research institutions on during the process of strengthening and strategically development transfer as a scientific performance dimensions. We've done that during a variety of activities and formats. We have a transfer audit. We conducted a couple of workshops with, I think I took place in at least about 40 workshops and transfer audits. So thus gaining a pretty good overview of the obstacles, of the hurdles, of the challenges, but also of the potentials that are connected to transfer. Okay, that's probably enough about my personal background. Let's have a look on the agenda for the next 20 minutes. What am I trying to do? First of all, I would take a couple of minutes to ask the question, which in no way is trivial, on why a research institution should engage in transfer. What are the motivations? What are the expectations, the requirements, but also what are the potential benefits? Then, first of all, I would like to take a couple of minutes to address the question, what exactly is transfer? What are the definitions of transfer? We've heard a couple of definitions already today, but I think it's important to stress that transfer is technology transfer, but transfer is also more than technology transfer. Then I would zoom in on the institutional level and take a look at key organizational framework conditions which are needed in order to strengthen transfer on the institutional level and in order to develop the also already mentioned organizational culture. And last but not least, I would like to show 6 elements of successful implementation gained from the German context and the strategy implementation at German research organizations. Okay, first of all, let's address the question, why transfer? As I said, this question is not trivial because, as we all know, the science system and the reputational mechanisms in the science systems strongly suggests that you should do research, that you should publicate papers in high impact journals. And transfer in any form is actually not part of the reputational mechanics. So for a scientist, it is rational not to engage in transfer because it is not relevant for career and they're forthcoming. So you need to answer the question, why should people engage in transfer? And this is on the level of people, on individuals, because transfer is people business, okay? So, for example, in the German context, it might be different in Anglo-Saxon context, where transfer is more of a central dimension, but also in the German context, transfer was not really a relevant scientific performance dimensions. This probably changed about 10 or maybe 5 years ago. And I just collected a couple of external and internal drivers why this is the case and why this development has taken place. First of all, we've seen from the external side that there's an increasing demand that science as a system shows its contribution both to economic but also to social development. We have more and more public expectations. We have the legitimation and accountability thing that the people want to see. What's the value for money? Science receives public funding, so why should money be allocated to science? We want to see value for money. We want to see societal economic contributions. This, of course, trickles down and is also impulsed by science funding and by legal mandate. And we see that research organizations and especially universities take this into account and begin to look at transfer as a strategic relevant dimension. So they start a strategic profiling, not only in research, in teaching, but now also in transfer. This, of course, has consequences for the internal development of the organization. We see that the institutional profiles and strategic goals also are now basically incorporating transfer as a relevant topic, as a strategic relevant dimension. We see that a lot of university management top executive roles entitled transfer in their denominations. So it's like the vice president for innovation and transfer. And it's a visible topic, which is very, very important. And Probably the last 2 points I will skip because it takes a lot of time and it's a very German-specific context. But just let me say that it also influences formal and informal decision-making. It's very important. And also in Germany, traditionally, the role and the relevance of internal committees is very, very high and has to be considered when strengthening transfer at institutions. Okay, so why transfer? I think it's obvious that there's an increasing demand, public demand, an increasing demand of science funding in order to engage and strengthen transfer as scientific performance dimension. But what exactly is transfer? It helps if you have an understanding of what you're trying to strengthen. And you see in the upper right-hand corner, you see the word cloud, and there are a couple of terms, a couple of concepts associated with the transfer. But they actually are just able to highlight certain activities, certain formats. But to my knowledge, there's not like one single definition of what is transfer. One could start by listing things that are part of being transfer. And I think also Stifterverband, but also the BMBF, we like the support of thinking about transfer in a broader understanding, in a broader sense. As I said, transfer for sure is technology transfer, but it is also knowledge transfer. So that means economic relevant transfer is important, technologies are important, but if you want to understand transfer in a broader perspective, it is probably feasible to think of transfer as being a cooperation, as being a bidirectional exchange of technology, but also of knowledge, services, personal. And it's very important that these cooperations take place with economic actors, with businesses, but also with institutions outside of the economic system. So with cultural organizations, with public organizations, with civil society. So that's very important in order to understand the broad concept of transfer. And why should you understand transfer in a broader sense? Well, it makes sense because you want to create a research institutional-wide transfer culture. And not everybody at university is in technical disciplines, right? And there's a vast potential of science in total, which in order to grasp it, you need to define transfer as being in a broader sense and as being relevant also to social science, to arts and humanities, because there's large contribution. And another fact is that a lot of today's challenges are not only technology based. In order to overcome and to master these challenges, there's a transdisciplinary process. You need a transdisciplinary process. So you need people from different disciplines, from different backgrounds. You need to combine technology. You need to combine also social sciences in order to see and take a holistic approach actually to these challenges. So there are good reasons why you should define transfer in a broader way. Okay. So here we are also on the institutional level. And why the institutional level? Because as I said, transfer is people business, and transfer and research is made by individuals. So it is good to make governance and to do centralistic steering attempts, but keep in mind that the individual researcher is key for successful transfer. And the individual researcher usually works at a research institution. So one way of directly influencing and trying to engage, sensitize, and activate individual researchers is to establish and create organizational framework conditions which favor the engagement in transfer. So what can we do? First of all, it is very important that transfer is part of the institutional goals and internal and external evaluation. Transfer has to be a strategic, relevant dimension. It has to be one of the strategies or one of the organization's main goals to engage in transfer. So a lot of research organizations in Germany in the last couple of years formulated specific transfer strategies in order to show this to the external side, but also to make the signal internally and to show that the research organization is really behind this topic. Then, of course, strategy is paper, but it is important that you, that you live what is written down in the strategy, and therefore it is very important to develop incentives and to create a culture of appreciation for transfer. This basically underlines the fact that transfer should be a relevant performance dimension, and it shows that it's visible both internally and as well externally. Then, of course, in order to support transfer, you need operational structures and processes which actively are supporting transfer. So in the German context, usually a university or research organization has a central transfer or research center, a support unit, which is very important. But it's not only to have this unit, but it's also very important that the unit has sufficient personal and financial resources, because let me stress this, transfer is not a side task. It is very time consuming. It needs personal and financial resources, and therefore it's one of the preconditions in order to make it work. Okay, now we're basically on the process of formulating a research institutional specific transfer strategy, because each institution has its own disciplines, it has its historic background, and therefore, in order to grasp the individual potential, you should formulate a institutional specific transfer strategy. This starts again with developing an institutional understanding of what is transfer. This means what is transfer, but also what is not transfer, and what can the institution do in this field, and what should it do and what probably might not be part of their strategic goal setting. It is very important that you develop an institutional specific understanding of transfer during a participatory process. It is not something that just comes from the top management level. I would strongly recommend you to form a project team with the university management, sure, but also with scientists across all disciplines from different career phases, junior scientists, senior scientists. And it is also very important to integrate staff from the administration and support departments, and maybe also external stakeholders and partners, which they have the demands, and it's very important that they are from the beginning part of the strategic process. It is also very important that the transfer strategy, which should be developed, is aligned with the institutional goals. It is important that the institutional goals, like on the highest strategic level, are part of the transfer strategy, and vice versa. So there have to be a positive recursive functioning between these two elements. And the thing is, or the challenge is, when you formulate a transfer strategy, you usually start to develop a profile. And developing a profile also means that you strengthen and you put a highlight on certain aspects, but other aspects maybe are not in the focus. So in order to integrate and leave no one behind, it is very important that you are aware of this process, and that you probably use the wording accordingly. So sometimes it's very helpful to use a narrative which might be a little abstract, but which is enables you to integrate everybody. For example, sustainability is a theme which can be applied in different disciplines, and this is key. So you have to be clever, and you have to fit something which fits to your institution, because you do not want to send the signal that this is like some exclusive thing which is only relevant to a small number of disciplines or people, but you want to actually develop a organizational-wide transfer culture, and therefore everybody should be part of. Yeah. The same basically applies for formulating the transfer strategy. Once you've reached a common understanding within your institution, you should try to formulate a transfer strategy. The transfer strategy, as strategies usually are, should be brief. You should see measures. You should formulate and define goals. So you should be as concrete as you can. Also, for the process of formulating a transfer strategies, I've seen different ways to do it. There's like the one guy, lone wolfism, I would call it, who is in his own chamber and has to write the transfer strategy, or you try to create a participatory process, which probably takes a couple of months. But I would strongly suggest that you should lean more to this side and that you should create a participatory process, because again, you want to send the signal that this is something which is relevant to all disciplines, to all people, starting from students, administration, junior researchers, etc. Yeah, the last point probably is clear. The measures and the goals should be realistic. You should formulate relevant goals, and you should also have the possibility of measuring whether you are successfully reaching your goals or not, because if not, you have to take the measures accordingly and adapt your acting. Okay. Once you've formulated your transfer strategy, you just have to implement it, and that's it. It sounds easy, but it's actually not very easy, because as all organizational change, it have to defund into the organization, and that takes time, that takes effort. We've made the experience that it's very smart, or it's better to probably not aim at the whole organizational at once, but to find your critical mass of already transfer active stakeholders, and from then on try to go step by step. You also might integrate productive skeptics, I would call these people, right from the beginning, because it's kind of a it's difficult, but I would also say, okay, they have to be productive skeptics. No, don't take people who are just not wanting to do it at all. But it's pretty good, because nothing is better than if the people are convinced during the process that transfer is something that is also relevant to them. Also, it's very important to create incentives. You cannot just formulate a transfer strategy and expect the people to change their behavior. You have to create incentives. From my experience, it's fame and honor is usually more important than money, especially when talking about researchers. Researchers like to have attention. Well, it is like it is, and it is much more functional to give them visibility, to give them appreciation, as just to do a transfer price and give them, I don't know, 2,000 euros. That's you won't change behavior during this, which does not mean that money is not important, but visibility, appreciation is very important. And in the German context, and I think this is maybe in general the case, time is crucial. The usual researcher, they have one thing that they're short of, and that is time. They have to do research, they have to do teaching, and now they also have to do transfer, which in my case, I think this is a bad framing, because it implies that there are 3 different tasks, and that there are 2 tasks. Time is already not enough, and now there's a 3rd task. So you should again be smart, be clever in your wording and in your framing. And transfer is not a 3rd backpack, but there's like an recursive relation between research, teaching, and transfer. And that's the way I would try to present this idea to researchers. And in the German context, we've made good experience with offering researchers specific time in order to engage in transfer. One specific format is the transfer semester. So researchers can take one semester off of their teaching or reduce their teaching load and engage in transfer. And yeah, time is, I think, one of the most relevant incentives in order to do transfer. Also, I would recommend, even though transfer is relevant for everybody, but do not make it a blanket obligation for everybody to engage in transfer. It is okay if people are not transfer affine, if they don't think that they can contribute to this, don't force them. Actually, in the German context, it is very hard to force researchers to do something. I mean, they're orientated towards their scientific peers. They have the freedom of research, so this does not work at all. So in order, yeah, don't make it a blanket obligation. That's just the point I would like to get across. Also, which is also probably linked to the point before, make it visible. You know, do and engage in transfer, but also use internal and external communication in order to establish transfer also as a central performance dimension of the institution. So you want the people in the innovation ecosystem to know what kind of solutions, what kind of research is offered by their university and by their research organization. And you only establish this by a continuous internal and external communication. Create a culture of appreciation for transfer. I already mentioned this point, but the internal and external communication cater to this objective. And it is also important to show and present your activities and your performance spectrum, but it is also very, very important to go to your central transfer partners and ask them for their demands, which is probably even more important because most small and medium cap enterprises, they don't web crawl university web pages and look for expertises and research activities. But if you go to them and show them what the institution might offer, it is much easier to engage in cooperations. Okay, I think my 20 minutes are over. So is my presentation. I have a wrap up where you can see all these steps on one chart, and I'm happy to discuss and to engage in further discussion during this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lemon-Browns, for the very clear points that you mentioned, how to strategically develop and strengthen transfer. Now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Eva Maria Knirsch from TUM International GmbH with a presentation about final destination technology transfer. Some insights that we are very eager to find out and learn from.
Thank you very much, Natalia. Thank you all for your perseverance, first of all, to go with us this whole morning. I mean, the information has been so overwhelming. And I mean, also, I did not know all of this, right? So for me, it was such a learning experience to listen to all the others because we all bring different aspects together. And for you, thank you so much that you are so patient and persistent, also with me now in the last, with the last presentation. Now, first of all, I have to learn how to work this machine here, right, the sketches. I press, I think you press down. Okay, okay, we'll try in a second. We'll try in a second, but before I press down, my title is Final Destination Technology Transfer, which means final destination is sort of something that may be quite far away, right? That's sort of the final destination. Okay, just keep that in mind. Final destination. And then insights from Kutaisi International University. This is a new university in Georgia. So I will mainly talk about Kutaisi International University, KU, more about Georgia than about Germany, because I figured you have heard so much about Germany the whole morning that Georgia might be more interesting for you. Also, there are a couple of there are a lot of differences between Georgia and Moldova, but there are also a couple of similarities, right? And I would like you to give me 3 or 4 similarities that immediately come to your mind when you think of Georgia and Moldova. Please. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Absolutely, thank you. Excuse me? Small. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. What else? Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else? Sort of these came to my mind also immediately. Brain drain. Okay. Maybe lack of perspective in their own country. So young, talented people leave. That kind of came to my mind as well. Okay. So that means we do have a couple of components that's the same in both countries. So we can look at one country. So I will sort of bring in the Georgian perspective, and then I would like you to provide the Moldavian perspective, okay? Because that I'm not an expert in. Now let's see whether this works. It does. Very good. Okay. All right. So we have heard so much about technology transfer. And to me, this seems like a huge promise, right? This is sort of, well, I wouldn't say paradise, but getting close, okay? We have high expectations, our research universities that can transfer knowledge, that can build up research, and then we get this innovative industry, everybody finds a job, we stop brain drain, and basically we'll enter into a new age of better life. Okay, this is the huge promise. And now you maybe understand why I said final destination. Okay, a huge promise that, of course, is in this word, in this term, technology transfer. Okay, that's the promise. Now let's get back to reality. Oh, that's the next slide. Hold on. Okay, reality. That's the starting point. So I can talk about Georgia because this is actually where I live, where I actually work at Kutaisi International University at KU. And I have to go right back to next to the next slide because it shows you it's an empty slide. And you can imagine what's going to happen. Yes, you will have to work and fill this with what you think is the starting point for Moldova. Okay. So let's go back. Yes, it works. Okay. In Georgia, we have more than 70 universities. I think this is very specific for Georgia. It's 3.5 or 6 million inhabitants. So it's a population of Berlin. And Berlin has maybe, correct me, 10, 15 universities, maybe 20. But maximum would be, let's say, 15 to 20, but no more than that. So the same population in Georgia, more than 70 universities, because about 70 to 80% of the population actually holds an academic degree. So you must think, I mean, they're the most academic country I have met so far. However, there's high unemployment, and especially high unemployment among academics. So meaning if you go to university, it gives you a degree, but not a job. Okay, now this, I don't know, I cannot compare to Moldova. Whether, you know, if students, talented students go to university and then they get the degree and then they basically go on driving taxi. So this is sort of the situation that we have a lot in Georgia. Okay. In Georgia, this is called educational mismatch because universities very much educate humanities, education, international relations, law, but very, very little engineering, basically no computer science that is up to date. And other life sciences, biochemistry, it's simply too expensive with the labs and everything, okay? So this is called the educational mismatch. So why the economy would need computer scientists, engineers, architects, biochemists. We have a lot of, again, as I said, humanities, history, nothing against history, whatever you call it. So just please compare it in your mind to Moldova, what the situation is, I don't know. Okay, educational mismatch. Then another problem in Georgia is that the education, even on university level, is not geared towards latest technology. It's sort of, it's education, absolutely, but it does not incorporate latest technology. Okay, it's just a fact. This is what Georgians also say. Very little research, especially cutting edge research. Georgia only has a couple of industry sectors that are dominant, which are tourism, banking, telecommunication, and mining. And if you look at mining, it's not really close to technology, right? You go into the mountains and you get out copper or something. So you don't, well, you might do this in an automated way, but it's not really that comes to a technology affiliated sector. Okay, very weak connection between university and economy. I don't know how this is in Moldova. I simply don't know. But there, in Georgia, universities do their thing and economy is sort of, they're separated. And it is one of the big problems. Okay, limited capacity for fast change. Limited capacity for fast systemic change. Why is that? There's a funding issue. There's a knowledge issue. There's an engagement issue. We have so many different problems, let's put it that way, that you never know where should I start and how should I do it. Okay. And then, oh yeah, and the effect of all of this is that many young, talented people actually leave the country, right? And also one conclusion out of that is that transferable knowledge, that if you want to build up the country, if you want to build up Georgia, or I guess Moldova in some sense, you need to have this international, you need to have this knowledge coming from international partners. Okay, because the knowledge first has to come into the country somehow. All right, this is the situation for Georgia. Now it works. So again, Moldova is empty yet, and we'll have our workshop this afternoon. And then I'll be watching and listening to you on how to fill this with your reality starting point. Let me talk about Kutaisi International University, small but running. Now, this morning, I learned a beautiful term from Vitali, over there, down there, smart specialization, okay? KU is smart specialization. You would say, okay, first question is another university. We have more than 70 in the country. Why would you do another one, the 72nd university? The reason simply is that that they say we want to have an approach. We want to have an approach that a very focused approach that brings positive results in a targeted area real quick. And it seems to be faster if you build it from scratch than if you try to change existing structures. That's what the Georgians say. So the basics about KU started in 2020, right in the middle of COVID. It's a state university, so it's public. It's not a private university because we feel that wealthy families can always afford to send their children abroad. They do it in Georgia. They probably do it in Moldova as well. We need something that's really accessible for all young people. If they are talented. KU runs in a structurally weak region. Now, this is also what I learned this morning, or actually already yesterday. Moldova is very concentrated on the capital. And I heard the regions are really populated by very often the small settlements, elderly people who stay there with a cow, a hen, and a pig. The same in Georgia, but there's really very, very little. It's weak structurally. So KIU was founded in Kutaisi, not in Tbilisi. Okay, very much on purpose, very much on purpose. It is a campus university. It's the only campus university in Georgia. Why is that? Now, this was something where the Germans that sort of are part of this adventure said, actually, we're into digitalization. This is against the trend. We can do everything online. It doesn't matter where students are. This much I learned from Georgia. In Georgia, you need to have the students right in front of you because at home, they do not have the environment to actually learn properly. You know, they don't have, they may not have internet, they may not have, it may not be quiet. It's large families in Georgia. You need to have them right in front of you in order to get something across. Okay, and all programs are in English, completely in English. That's also one thing. Soundly financed. We talked about funding all the morning, so I don't want to go into that. Okay. Now, let's go back one here. You see the last one, we need knowledge coming in from international partners. Okay. Okay. Oh, where is Kutaisi? Who knows where Kutaisi is? Hands up. Oh yeah, thank you. Of our Moldovan friends here, anybody? All right. You find Tbilisi, that's the center in Georgia to the right. And then you find Batumi, probably, you know, Batumi on the Black Sea coast. And if you go start from right, from Tbilisi, and from left, from Batumi, and exactly where the two meet, in the middle of nowhere, there's Kutaisi. Okay, that's where the university is. And this is the university buildings. So if you look at the blue building, this is where I live in a student apartment, okay? The professor's house is not yet finished. So all professors actually also live in student dorms, which is an interesting experience. Okay. All right. How does KIU get international partners? Now, of course, we do the same. When we say we, yeah, I'll explain that later. Okay, we do the same thing as everybody. We have advisory boards, right? It's easy to get them. It's easy to get advice and recommendation on a high level. But then here is where TUM International comes in. And TUM International is working on a more lower level, right? So I'm the representative of TUM International there. I'm directly on the campus. We help with the curricula. We help with international accreditation. That's very important. That the programs get international accredited because then it's worthwhile to go studying there. Right? Okay, so that's where we help. We implement an innovation ecosystem and so on and so forth. And then we have teaching partners, international. And I think this is really a very innovative idea. We have 50% of German professors living on the campus, most of them, and 50% of Georgian professors. And here you get this mixture also of teaching and culture and everything on a daily basis. It's very challenging, but I think this is really where innovation starts, that you do something different. Okay, so we have 50% Georgian faculty, 50% German faculty, and most of the German faculty lives directly on campus. Okay, we have the DAAD also supporting that, and it's that, to my mind, is very, very important. Here is a slide about the TUM International, what we do. This is just for your background information. TUM International really helps university development, technology transfer development, research partnerships, and this is just a couple of the projects that we do. And you see, the KIU is on top, the second one from the right. So this is where I am. but the others are just as interesting. And if you need or want more information on them, I'm happy to provide this in the afternoon. All right. Okay. Now, we said that in Georgia, there is a weak connection between universities and industry. And that's just a fact. So KU said we need to start from the very, very beginning of the university. We start to do it different. And they are really excellent in building this connection between university and industry. They started from the very beginning, mandatory internships. Very challenging. It sounds so easy, but find companies in Georgia that are willing to take interns. And interns that can learn something in these companies. There are basically very few companies. No? So this internship program, I would say, is one of the most challenging aspects of KU. But we keep going in that. We try to get it going. Tomorrow, we have our first ever job fair. Okay. We have a lot of, we try to build up connections with industry partners, small companies, whatever. If we have whoever sort of is around, we try to incorporate them. So we're really building up a very strong connection also to the region. We have social enterprises in the region, we have small enterprises in the region, and basically KU has connections to basically all of them. So this is really what they're strong at. We very closely work with JITA. JITA is the Georgian NARD, right? Georgian Innovation and Technology Agency, yes. And what they do is each summer they do a summer camp at KU, and students that have a business idea are allowed to go to this 2-week summer camp. And we do have first very, very successful startups at KU. They even got now funded by, one got funded by Italy because the idea is so good. So we do have a couple of very interesting and successful approaches. Okay. And then KU wants to counteract this educational mismatch, right? KU wants to educate young people to give them a knowledge so that they can find a job, if possible, in their country without having to leave the country, and sort of get a job that pays them enough to live on. Okay. First idea was to do biochemistry. It turns out it's simply too expensive. Yeah, you would need to have labs. You have only a very limited number of students. Too expensive. So we did computer science. Computer science is excellent. And we do management technology, which is management, but with the focus on technology. So this is also a program at Technical University of Munich. And now we are doing an interdisciplinary master, financial and information management, which is for math students, computer science students, and management students. So it's really interdisciplinary, and it should give our students good chances. Okay, now this is the first year. We have our first graduates. After 8 semesters, we have the first graduates. And for me, it's like, I've been there from the very beginning for 4 years now. For me, it's very emotional because our students are getting jobs. And the most important thing, a couple of them leave the country. Yes, no way, you cannot prevent it. But we have more than half of them staying in Georgia. This is what we want, right? We want educated young people with knowledge they can apply in Georgia that is sought after and gives them a decent salary. And especially our computer scientists are really sought after. So we can, I mean, there's banks that want them. There is also auditing companies for the management technology students. So we do have a couple of successful examples where talented students that do not want to leave the country can stay in the country, okay, and make their living there. All right. Challenges. Oh yes, I could fill pages of challenges. I just want to give you a couple of examples, cultural differences between the Germans and the Georgians. Now we are very close in alphabet, Germany, Georgia, right? Very close in alphabet, very different in culture. Okay. One example, we have a faculty meeting. Now the dean sits right here. Without placement, the Georgian professors sit on one side, the Germans sit on the other. We did not arrange this. It's just comes natural, right? So how do you think the Georgian professors behave? How would you behave in a faculty meeting? Dean, the leader, sort of the head sitting up front. Well, our Georgian colleagues listen to what the dean has to say. Okay, maybe this is post-Soviet, I don't know, but this is how it's done. Okay, they listen and nod. How do you think the German professors behave? Yeah, exactly. Exactly so. This is, yeah, this summarizes it perfect, right? Yeah, this problem, that problem. How are we going to address this? And we haven't solved this. And when are we going to do this? So it is a very interesting experience. It is challenging, right? But then on the other side, if you do not allow this diversity, if you do not allow this discussion, or let's put it positive, if you allow this, then innovation can happen, because innovation is not if you have a hierarchical structure where you listen only in this vertical way. Innovation happens if you have a leadership structure that's not hierarchical. We're not yet there, but we are trying every day, and it's challenging every day. Okay. Yeah, we have a high failure rate because students are, of course, not used to this high quality demand. So we have failure rate of more than 50%, which is difficult for our Georgian students. We have sometimes poor English. We have a lot of other things. And then on a high level, our Georgian management is very, very pleased with how things go, which is also a risk, because once you're pleased and satisfied with the status quo, you do not move on anymore, right? So yes, there are challenges on a day-to-day, really on a day-to-day basis. On the other side, what is so promising about this? Okay, what is so promising about this? Now, advantages of this focused approach, and let me again use the term of Vitali, smart specialization, right? You have positive results very fast. Young people directly profit, okay? You have competition. We get the best students in all over the country. And of course, now the large universities in Tbilisi, in the capital, they also want to keep students. So they have to get better as well. So we raise competition in the country, which is a very good thing. And then the example is simply encouraging. It's simply encouraging. And I think there's very few people in Georgia that do not know about Kutaisi University. We are watched closely. How is it going on? What are they doing? Okay, so TU cannot replace systemic change, but systemic change takes time. And the question now is there something in Moldova that we could say, this is a smart specialization approach that we can take where we have good results fast, encouraging, directly sort of target the young people, give them a perspective, and at the best, sort of also foster competition. Okay? It might not be a university, it can be a research institution, it can be a competition, it can be whatever, right? It could be a collaboration. It's maybe something different, but the smart specialization that sort of within a couple of years has direct positive impacts. Okay, this is basically what I wanted to say, and now you know why it's final destination technology transfer. We're not near that. But on the way to this technology transfer final destination, there are already so many good results. Sort of, I call them flowers on the way that you can pick. Yeah? You wander along the way. You're not yet at the summit, but there are some flowers right and left, and you pick them. And this is where we are. And this is what I hope you can profit from and also decide what you want to make out of it. I have 2 questions for discussion then. The focused approach, what could that be in Moldova, and what would be the target groups that you would focus on? Thank you very much for your attention right before the lunch break.
Thank you very much, Ms. Knirsch, for this very impressive presentation. I'm sure we have a lot to learn from Georgia, and I'm so happy that we met all of you, and it's just impressive how much information you possess and you are willing to guide us through this process. So right now I will address our guests. Stimați oaspeți, acum facem o pauză și la orele 1 vă invităm să luați parte în cadrul grupurilor de lucru 1, 2 și 3, conform temelor anunțate în agenda. Grupul de lucru numărul 1 va lucra chiar aici, în Sala Mică. Grupurile 2 și 3 sunt invitați în Sala Azurie și Argintie. Aveți informația, indicatoarele pe panou, jos la etajul 1. Deci, o jumătate de oră sperăm că va ajunge și participanții în cadrul grupurilor de lucru vor primi din partea noastră și o diplomă, ca să știți. Și vă mulțumim pentru efortul dumneavoastră și pentru timpul acordat. Deci ne revedem la orele 1.